Beautiful. Hi, everybody. I'm Michael with The Pet's Journey, and I'm here with Pam. How do you say your last name to make sure I say it right?
Roussell.
Roussell, with Roussell, Perfectly Holistic. And I had a wonderful conversation with Pam not too long ago and about her approach and how she became part of this journey with pets and all that. And so I would always like to take the first few minutes and have my guests introduce themselves and say hi to our audience. And let's start there. So give me a little background about yourself and where you start. We won't go into full detail because I'll go deeper with you, but let's
Yeah.
just give a brief synopsis of who you are, why you're doing what you do.
Well, you could just say it all had to do with a cat.
Right.
I am a dedicated cat mom. I love kitties. They are my passion. I've been around cats since I was literally born. They have a picture of me in a stocking because I was born in December, right before Christmas, and there's a kitty cat spread out on the floor right next to me. So I've had cats in my life. You could say I was imprinted early. And many years ago, I was forced to look outside of my conventional box of healing, just conventional medicine, because I had an injury that wouldn't heal. And it led me on a journey to explore alternative healing options. And that that ended up working when all the others did not work. And so that kind of put me on a path to explore holistic health and learning what holistic health really means and why we need to be using it, because oh my gosh, the results are incredible. And it's holistic means whole, so we deal with the whole body, we deal with the mind, the body, the spirit. And guess what? The coolest thing is you can do all of that with your cats and your dogs. But it works like that on pets too. And so I found a bridge to combine my passions of cats with holistic health, and I started just educating because I want to empower cat parents. They don't have to be stuck on this journey that's, this never-ending Ferris wheel they can't get off of, healing problems or whatever ailments they're dealing with their pets. And so they need to be empowered. And that is what I kind of dedicate my platform to, is just education and introducing ways to heal our pets from an alternative perspective.
Well, one of the things that really attracted me to you when we first started talking, because I deal with so many different pet people around the United States and then throughout Europe as well. And you're like one of the first people that I've actually found that actually is like so, committed to the feline species. Where most people are like dog, they're in the dog direction. And so it's like when I found you, I was like, oh my God, I love what you're doing. And I love that you focus on the felines, because like there's not many people that I have found so far in my network that does this.
I know.
And and I find that we need we need team players everywhere throughout our life. And there's so many people. I love cats. I've always been a cat person myself up to a certain point, and then I got dogs, and then I got dogs and cats. But it's like I just like their intellect. I like the way they think, and they're so smart, and you can leave them alone, and they want to be left alone. They're not like, okay, let's do this, and then sometimes they are like that.
Yep.
So I really, really appreciate it. So where do you find like once you found something that something wasn't working for you,
Hmm.
and then you went to the holistic side to see what you could do for yourself, and that seems to be a part of like everybody's journey, is like, how did we get here? What wasn't working for you, or what pivoted you into this thing? Because we talked about Katie. Katie is like, she did the same thing with her dog, where all of a sudden something wasn't working, and it was her husband, and all this kind of like brought her down to where she is today. And it's just like same thing with you, is
Yeah.
that like you found this need for yourself that you felt that can be appreciated in the cat community. And I love that. So when you first started out, did you ever think you'd be where you are today?
Oh no, it wasn't even a concept in my mind. Like I'm talking probably 2004, 2005, when I had that whole health crisis. I'll call it health crisis because it was. I was facing surgery and I didn't want to have surgery. That's a crisis for a needle phobic, hospital phobic, doctor phobic person. So,
Right.
that was a little motivation. I've got to figure this out because this is not going to go down that path anymore. Um, so no, I was in a whole nother industry. I was in the fitness industry for probably 35 years,
Wow.
doing personal training for a while, and then I moved into sales and marketing and things like that. But I was a group exercise instructor since I was 16 years old. So I've been in the health world, but more in the fitness side of it. So that's what I was doing, and I loved it until I realized what I was here for. You know what I mean? When you figure out what your real purpose of being here on this earth is for,
I
it's like
love that.
it just lights a fire in your soul, and
Yeah.
you can't get that out of your mind. And so life just kind of put me on that path, preparing me all those years ago for what I was going to learn, that put me into a position where I realized I needed to create a business out of this. And 3 years ago, I took it full time. So I've done it for, this will be my 10th year in business, but I worked my ass off for 7 years working a full time job. So
Yeah.
that's what we do. When you have a passion, it's a burning desire inside of you, and long term that's what you're meant to do. You just keep going, you just do.
Well, and that's kind of like when you said like 2005, you said around 2005,
Yeah,
2000.
2004, 2005 is something like that.
And that's kind of like where I started my journey with what we do here at Healthy Paws. Is that I did an event and I started listening to the pet owners, and they're just like, they wanted something different than Western medicine. And
Yeah,
I looked and I could not find it there. But that's what sparked that, like you said, that burning desire within me to say, I've got to find this. There's got to be something out there. There's got to be something better for pets.
yeah,
So I made it my mission, and it took me up to 2019 to find Dr. Kyle and what he was doing. And that was like the magical moment that was like, aha, we found it after looking at so many different things.
yeah,
And when I was introduced to you and I found out, that you're with the cats, I was like, oh my God, I love this. Because I really, like I said, I haven't found people that are really around cats. They're around, they're around pets, if anything, but they're mostly around dogs. So when a client comes to you, how does a client find you, and how do they, you know, like, what's the driving force for them to find you? Have they just exhausted everything and all of a sudden they just go on the internet and they start looking and all of a sudden, boom, there you are? What's that first interaction like with you?
well, a lot of cases they are searching online for a specific ailment that their cat is dealing with, and I've written a lot of blogs and articles over the years that I've thank God someone taught me how to do SEO. That's all I got to say. Is the best money I spent.
Right.
You know? And so I was able to get stuff in that search engine for all these years. And so now when they're online looking up something like pancreatitis, their cat is struggling with and they can't figure it out and their doctor can't help or whatever, they see an article or something will pop up, on the internet, or they'll be on Google or YouTube, searching for videos for a certain topic, and they might see something like an interview that I did. Or a show or something like that, and it's about that topic. And then they reach out. And yes, you're right. It's usually like, I have exhausted all possibilities. I'm tired. My cat is not doing any better. And I'm at my wit's end. Please help me. I don't know. I don't have anywhere else to go. That's the people that end up in my inbox. And it's
Yeah.
wonderful. I mean, it's a blessing. I love that, but my heart breaks because it took them so long to get to that point where and maybe it's not that they didn't find me, but they didn't find an alternative
Yeah.
to help. You know what I mean? They've been in this struggle for months, years, whatever it is, and oh my gosh, your poor cat struggling when it shouldn't have to be that way. That's the sad part.
Yeah. 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 We hear a lot, with our company, is like, God, why did it take so long? And I think dog people are more, because cats seem to be, they're aloof and they kind of in their own little world. So so maybe, I could say cat parents are not as in touch like with dog parents are with their dogs, because their dog's always in their face, they're always here, well, you know, and cats are over here doing their thing, they're sitting in the sun and all that. So we really are not in touch with, you know, what's really going on. And so this specialty that you do, I think, is so brilliant. You just meant pancreatitis, is that what you just said?
Pancreatitis.
And so is that one of the main issues cats have in
You
your
know,
view?
I would probably guess that a lot of cats, a lot more than parents realize, have pancreatitis issues or an inflamed pancreas, or, you know, it typically shows up as vomiting, chronic vomiting, and they can't figure out why their cat is vomiting, and their vets, you know, they're clueless. They're just like, oh, just give them this anti-vom, you know, nausea medicine and here's some prescription food. Well, that doesn't fix the problem. You know, and they're still stuck on this, you know, never-ending cycle. But and it's because cats are the most nutritionally abused pets out there. You know, they're not meant to be eating dry, processed, starchy carbohydrate foods. They are carnivores. They're meant to be eating meats. And sadly, because of the processed pet food industry, as you know,
Uh,
the majority of people feed their cats dry food. Now, thank God, over the last several years, there has been this change of consciousness, expansion of consciousness, awareness of learning more, you know, how to do better for cats and what they eat. And there's a influx of fresh food options and raw feeding companies and freeze dried and gently cooked. So it's slowly getting into the consciousness of people that, ooh, I need to do a little bit better for my cat. I don't really want her eating this dry food, you know. And so that's a start. It's definitely a start. The number of cats who are exclusively eating dry food has dropped over the years, but it's still way too high. You know what I mean?
do you find that you like to actually suggest home cooked food for your cat?
You know,
How do you feel
not
about that?
you know, personally, here's what I have learned. You've got to have it balanced. You can't just throw some raw meat in a bowl and go, here you go, and, you know, expect your cat to thrive, because it's going to be deficient in all their vitamins and nutrients and fats and minerals and amino acids that they absolutely have to have. So if people want to feed a homemade food, I tell them you need to follow a recipe. So absolutely. If you want to DIY, great. Just make sure that you're following a balanced recipe so that your cat is getting all the nutrition it requires biologically. Because one of the biggest pet peeves that vets have against raw feeding or fresh feeding is because they say it's not balanced. And they have these pet parents that bring their animals into the vet, and they're you know, they're deficient on their amino acids. They've developed heart, you know, health problems because of nutritional deficiencies, and we can't have that. So we can't guess. We have got to follow, you know, a proven recipe that meets all the requirements that they need.
Now, I know in the working with dog people, a lot of people use the website Balance It. Are you familiar with that?
I am
And
familiar with that. Yes.
how do you feel about that site for cats?
You know, I haven't spent any time on it, to be honest with you. I know it's there.
Okay.
Um, and then there's also one that Steve Brown, who is a renowned pet food formulator, has put together called the Animal Diet Formulator, ADF. I don't know the website exactly, but if you look up Animal Diet Formulator, you probably will find it. And it does have like a monthly fee to it, but it's awesome if you want to be the one to formulate your own recipes and how to balance it. You know what I mean? And hit all of the most important markers that are required for your cat's diet. But for people who are just busy and they don't want the stress of having to figure it out, I just tell them, you know what? Here's the list, and I keep an ongoing, you know, list of recommended brands that I would trust to feed my own pets. Take a look at my list and go out and buy something that's already made. You know what
That's
I
our
mean?
is
Or get like a premix where it's like the mixture of all the amino acids and it could be food based, but you just add that to your fresh meat from the grocery store that you buy for yourself, and you add water or goat's milk. You could put other yummy stuff in it like egg yolks and mushrooms and whatever it is you want to put in it. You can do it like that, and that's actually ends up being cheaper than buying a commercial food, because obviously more time, and it's more expensive to buy something that's already made and
Package.
shipped and packaged and marketing and all that kind of stuff. So there are ways to do it, no matter what your budget is, no matter what your time constraints may or may not be. So you just have to work with what's possible in your world. You can make it work, even if you, like I tell people, do the best you can with the resources that you have. And even if you can't feed 100%, fresh diet, do as much as you can, because it does make all the difference in the world.
Well, and I love that you say that, because a lot of times the big reaction we always hear is like, "Oh, I can't afford it. I can't afford it." And I love the fact that you just shared that you can afford it. It's actually cheaper if you do it the right way.
Mhm.
It's just, some people just don't know where to go or where to start. Do you have, like, on your site, do you have any programs that you offer, or how do you introduce people on where to start?
Well, one of the things that I think everybody should do who has a pet is follow Susan Thixton at truthaboutpetfood.org. She is a pet food consumer advocate. She stands for us in front of regulators, people who regulate pet food, who own the definitions of pet food. She's the one fighting day in, day out. She puts together a list of vetted companies that have to submit tons of information about their food, where they're getting their ingredients, their sourcing, how those animals are raised, the quality of the food, the customer relationship service of the company. Like, she looks at so many things, and she puts out a list every year that you can buy for like $12. And it's a very comprehensive list of different categories like raw food, fresh food, freeze dried food, gently cooked food, canned food. Um, and it goes by categories, dog and cat. And you can start there. That's a great place to start, to at least know that someone has done some homework on these companies. Um, they care about nutrition. They care about providing guaranteed analysis, which tells you what's in the food, not to the degree of each quantity of ingredient, but it breaks it down to say, yes, it meets, this many grams for nutritionally for this pet's needs or whatever it is. She's done a lot of that work for you, which is awesome. And I don't have time to do that. I mean, she dedicates her world to do this, that, and, fight for pet food regulation and transparency and things like that. So that's a great place to start, truthaboutpetfood.com. And then if
Well,
you go into, sorry, go ahead. If
well,
you go to like a
oh,
local
sorry.
pet store, like your independent pet stores, not your big box chains, but find a local pet store, because those independents, we call them indies, those are the ones who are vetting the smaller mom and pop type companies who are trying to do better for their pets, who've made a brand of food or treats or whatever, and they care about sourcing, they care about how those animals are treated and slaughtered and things like that, they care about the quality of ingredients. Those are the stores you want to go into and support.
Yeah, Amanda, who is one of my mods, she actually put up the website for us. So we do have it. Yeah,
Awesome.
I
Check them out.
and once again, she sounds very much like Ryan.
Hmm.
You know,
Ryan was the scientist that did all the formulation and things like that. But
yeah,
Susan is the one fighting against the FDA and AFCO, who are the regulators, who says what you can and can't have in pet food. And, it's really, it regulates the feed industry. And it's important for people to understand that there's a difference between pet food and pet feed. And most of the food, I said that in quotes for those of you listening, most of the pet food on the market is feed grade. That means it's not passed. It's not inspected and passed by the USDA so that ingredients in it would be what you would eat. This is like the recycled garbage from the human food industry. It's the waste. It's the dead, dying, diseased, and disabled animals that end up in slaughterhouses and rendering places that go into pet food. It is absolutely despicable. It's gross. The things that end up in pet food that should not be in pet food would make your head spin. And so that's why there's a difference between feed and food. But AFCO regulates the pet feed industry. And right now, all of pet food falls under feed. So, go figure it out. It's crazy. It needs to be two different, like in a perfect world, what I think they should do is have a pet food industry and a pet feed industry. So if you want to create a food that really is feed grade, go for it.
Go
If
for
you
it.
want
Yeah.
to create a food that is fresh, that is made with ingredients that you and I would go buy in the grocery store and eat ourselves, that's not, that has been inspected by the USDA and passed, that's the kind of food I want to feed my pets. You know what I mean? Because I don't want them getting all the other garbage that could be in that other food. So there needs to be two different categories, two different standards, if you will, in my opinion.
No, and I agree, but I would think like the pet food companies or like feed companies don't want to have that separation because they want to be inclusive of like, oh, we do food. When they fall into the category of actual feed, they
Right.
call it food still. Yeah, I totally get. Yeah, I mean, and what you're, it's so fun. It's so interesting listening to you because like when you're speaking and the way you're speaking, it sounds so much like Ryan when I would talk to Ryan and have him on my show,
Yeah.
and the stuff that I would learn, like what you were talking about, how it's made. It's just like it was shocking to me.
Yeah. It's If anyone really wants to dive into this, go watch the movie Pet Fooled. You can probably get it on Hulu, Amazon, whatever your favorite video movie platform is, but Pet Fooled. And I'm just going to leave it there. You go watch that and it will open your eyes. It will totally, um,
Change. Yeah.
it will change the way you look at pet food forever. I
Well,
promise.
since I met Ryan, my whole understanding of pet food is completely different. It's like the whole like, oh, you're feeding kibble. It might as well be Captain Crunch, right?
Right. Right.
You're,
Yeah.
what nutrition are you getting from Captain Crunch every single day for your kids and for your pets? It's like there's none, there's zero.
Yeah.
Like when you really look at it, you're just like going, oh my God. Someone's asking, was that pet? It's
Yeah.
fooled, right?
It's
Fooled.
I'll write it in here for you. Pet Fooled.
Okay,
It's a documentary. Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, go check it out. Oh my gosh. When I saw that movie, I my world was just like, "Oh my God, you've got to be kidding me." I had no idea. And something you said earlier about thinking it was too expensive to feed better food. The reality is, and this might be shocking for some people, it's actually cheaper by the ounce to feed raw food or fresh diet than it is to buy canned food because the cost of cans has gone up exponentially over the last several years. So even your cheaper cans at the grocery store are costing more. So if you were to just give it a shot, give it a try and see if you can do a fresh food, frozen, raw food type of option, even if it's just 50% of the time, it ends up being less money than you think. And sadly, I used to think it was going to cost me more than I can afford when I was feeding all my cats dry and wet food years ago. And that was one of the reasons I dragged my feet in changing. But after my third cat died of kidney disease, I had to learn the hard way. And I'm like, okay, no more dry food. I literally came home from the vet from having to put my cat down and threw the rest of the bag of kibble in the trash. And I said, we're not doing this anymore because it just deprives them of the moisture that they need for their bodies and their kidney health long term. And people don't really understand that. They just think it's convenient. And I did everything wrong. So I don't judge anybody from, we live, we learn, hopefully we do better. And that's one of the things that I really, really try to share with people is that, you have to forgive yourself because you didn't know better at one time. But once you know, let's try to do better, because our pets are the ones that pay the price. And our
Yeah.
pocketbooks, because we end up at the vet, right, with problems, chronic health diseases that we can really avoid if we're treating them biologically and feeding them biologically the way they're designed to eat, and be raised. So,
Yeah, and I say that a lot too. Is like what you just touched on is like, where are you spending your money? Are you spending it up front with the quality of the food, or are you spending it later on with the vet bills?
yes, exactly. Exactly.
You know,
Like pay now or pay later.
yeah, exactly. Pay now or pay later. It's like, and I think you just touched on something that's so important too. Is like once you know, and you don't want to go back.
Yeah, you can't
It's
go
just
back.
educating yourself. It's just
Right.
because after visiting with Ryan so many times and him just like beating into me how it's made and just giving me the visual graphics, and I'm just like no, and he's like yes, I'm
Yes.
like no, and the thing that was alarming, and I don't know about the cat food, what do you think about this, is the one thing that was alarming for me with him when he was talking about dog food was that like a lot of the dog food is made at the same manufacturer and everybody's just basically white labeling it and changing a few things and making it theirs. Do you find that's the same with the cat food?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Because that's the easy way to go. You don't have to go hire your own nutritionist. They're just going to buy it from one source and they just put your name on it and send it out or whatever. I'm sure I'm sure not your higher quality brands, of course, but maybe your lower quality processed food brands. I'm sure they do that a lot. It would not surprise me because I feel like that's one of the easy ways if you're going to be if you're going to sell pet food, that's probably, and you're a big company, you just want to add it to your lines and make money. That's the quickest way to do it, right?
Exactly. Well, and the other thing too, Ryan would share with me is that in the dog food world, and I'm going to ask you this, they use a wolf on the package
Oh
on
yeah.
some dog food. Do they do that with cat? Do they use a different animal than a cat?
They'll put like a mountain lion, a puma, sometimes, or they'll just put a beautiful, Maine Coon cat or whatever, but they do what they often tend to do more that I see instead of the animal itself is the pictures of the food. So, if they want you to think that this food has delicious steak in it, and they put this beautiful picture of a steak and, fresh vegetables next to it, and it's just really enticing. And you look at that product or that label, and you're like, oh, I want to feed my cat that. Well, guess what? That's not in there.
It's,
It's
it's
not in
and
there.
that's yeah, and that's what he taught me too, is the fact that when you look at the ingredients, usually the first few ingredients are really not there. It's like, and then you see all the additives that they have to put at the
Yes.
end of the food to be able to bring up the nutritional value. So it's even edible almost, and
Right.
it's slightly nutritional. And so it's funny. Didn't think we were going to go down this row with the food, but it's like I sit there and it's just like I feel traumatized thinking about all my time with Ryan, just going, oh my, because I had no idea. I was
Yeah.
uneducated. I
I
had
was too.
yeah, I had no idea. The other thing you mentioned earlier that I always like to bring up, and we talk about that too, is like with our formulas, with our company, we only go into indie pet stores.
I love that.
And it's because that they do their work. They take the time and they're there. So if anybody's in the room and you don't know where to turn to or where to go, just find yourself a mom and pop, family owned,
Yeah.
independent pet store, indie pet store, and they'll direct you in the right direction. And that's what I love about them.
Yes. I have one here in Georgetown where I live, and it's the owner is one of my closest friends. We bonded at a trade show years ago and have been super tight ever since. So I moved here because of her store and helping her, and we do a lot of cross promotion and stuff like that together. But every time I go in her store just to shop or just to pick something up for the cats, I always end up helping her customers because they know my expertise and my background. And she'll like pull me over to, customers talking and we get to talking. I'm like, and I'll end up, making some suggestions based on whatever they're struggling with, or we'll talk about nutrition, or we'll talk about, supplements or herbs or whatever it is they're struggling with. But people are so hungry for information and for help. They really, really are, because they're not getting it from their vet, unfortunately. You know.
No. Yeah, no. Well, I think like you said earlier, is like we have entered into a whole new era where people are really looking a little deeper into how they're treating their pets. You know,
Yes,
their pets are like they're their family.
their
You know,
family.
the pet almost got out from outdoors to indoors and all of a sudden has their own bedroom sometimes, indoors now. And it's a whole, I mean, I've had clients that said, in fact, a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to a client on the phone and she was telling me about her cat, how her cat was doing and all that. And she's like, Michael, she goes, I have to tell you. And we become friends. You become friends with these people, they
Mhm.
become part of your tribe, and you're
Oh,
there.
for sure. Yep.
Yeah, you become part of their wellness team for their pets. And so she's like, I have to tell you, Michael, she goes, my cat means more to me than my kids. And I'm like, I get it. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally understand. I mean, and if you're married, I used to be married. I loved my cats more than him. I'm sorry. That's the truth.
The unconditional love,
They're
right?
just easier. They're easier to love than humans sometimes.
Isn't that the truth? So someone asked this question, you see it down below. Not sure if you've covered this, but about pea protein. What do you think about that?
Horrible, horrible, horrible. Peas are legumes. And number one, legumes are some of the most highly sprayed crops with glyphosate before they're harvested. So think of the product Roundup that we use for our weed killers. That's what they're spraying. It has glyphosate. That's what they're spraying on all these crops: corn, wheat, soy, legumes, um, and other things. But yeah, they are replacing quality protein, animal protein, with plant protein. And number one, the glyphosate. Number two, legumes are lectins, and so they're sticky proteins, and they can disrupt the gut, and they can actually block nutrient absorption in the gut
They line it.
problem.
Yep.
you
Yep.
know and so um and it's not digestible for cats. Pea protein is, they're carnivores. They don't digest plants. So it's a cheap way to reduce the cost of the pet food by adding plant proteins instead of putting meat in it. So I am not a fan of any kind of legume, in a that's used in a pet food like that. No.
Yeah, Ryan mentioned that as well. Now, Susan's got this, roadmap of like the food and all that. Does she have one of like the foods to avoid?
No, this is just a list of companies that met her very, very high
Standard.
criteria standards. Yeah. If you want to see a list of pet food brands to avoid, go to the grocery store. And I'll just leave it there.
Isn't that the truth? Oh my God, that's
I
so real.
cringe every time I have to walk down that aisle to get birdseed. I see people buying stuff, and I'm thinking, oh, God bless that poor cat or that poor dog. You have to eat that. You
Well,
know.
yeah, and once again, it's not the pet owner's fault. It's just that they just
No.
don't know. We
They
don't
don't
know.
know. They don't know.
We're not,
And they see all the beautiful brand, the marketing and the advertising on TV that tugs at their heartstrings, and the price point, you know, and convenience, because I'm here shopping. I can just shop for them too. And so it's that we have to overcome just the lack of knowledge. You know what I mean? And I think if you broke it down to the average customer that is buying their food at a grocery store, and you showed them what's in that versus what their pet really, really would thrive on, they would obviously choose the better food. You know what I mean? They're not
right,
stupid. If
right,
you
right, right.
showed them, if you broke it down, they'd go, "Oh my God, I want that." I don't want that. What am I buying this for? Um, so it is a lack of knowledge, and then in some cases it is budget. So there you have to find ways that you can throw in some good options and some, you know try to make their diet a little bit better is with the budget that you have. And there are ways to do that.
And what do you, okay, talking about that, what do you think about this? This is one thing that Ryan and I were talking about too, is like sometimes people don't realize is like, you're cooking at home, you're cooking for your family, you're cooking for yourself, especially if you're cooking for yourself. How much food do you end up with, leftovers?
Yeah.
So why not break some of that down, the vegetables and all that, and put it in your cat's food or your dog's food? Do you believe in that as well?
It really depends. Cats are not dogs. They don't need vegetables. Although it's not to say that they wouldn't like them. Like some cats like broccoli. Some cats like to nibble on pieces of fruit, but it's not their main diet. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But cats like sardines. Cats may like, fresh eggs, egg yolks, or freeze-dried egg yolks. There are ways to incorporate some food products, like actual food, into their diet that can be super beneficial as, if nothing else, as a fiber source. And we're talking a half a teaspoon. So we're not talking, tons of food like you would dogs, like your leftover veggies, or make enough for two and share. Dogs are just different. Cats don't necessarily go pick up, they don't want to go eat vegetables. They might like the meat, but those kinds of things. But yeah, I think it's a smart thing to not just throw those leftover things or those extras out, is put them in your pet's food, if they like that. But just
Yeah.
keep in mind, it's not their main diet. It's just,
It's not their big,
it's just
right.
a little added bonus, it's a fresh option that has living enzymes if it's not cooked, or it provides a good source of fiber. It supports the microbiome. Maybe it has medicinal properties like mushrooms and, things like that. So, or it's got really good sources of antioxidants and fats and things like that.
Let's pivot a little bit right now about off of food a little bit, because I have a question that's in my mind right now, and I wanted to see what your thoughts are on it. Is that, a lot of people, they're starting to question where to draw the line between the vet and not the vet. At what, I hear a lot of times, and I always say vets, vets part of our team, is part of our toolbox. We need them. They are so important, because you don't know in an emergency when you're going to need them or what's going to come up. Don't disregard your vet. Your vet is an important key to your pet's wellness. But I also hear a lot of times where people, like, I had this one lady that I was talking to the other day. In fact, she had a cat, 19.5 years old, just passed away. And one of the things that they said is that they didn't believe in all the vaccines or all the different shots and all that at the vets. And they really, there was her cat, she said, the first time the cat stepped in the house and the first time the cat stepped out of the house was like when the cat came to the home to be part of the family, and when the cat passed away was the first time the cat ever left the house. It never saw a vet during its whole life.
Yeah.
And she's like, she felt like that was part of the success of the age of her cat, was the fact that she wasn't being pumped with all these chemicals and all that. What's your thought about all that?
There is definitely a time and a place for veterinary medicine when you have an emergency. If your cat's been hit by a car, if your cat has, had raging diarrhea and vomiting blood and things like that, let's not play around. Let's get to the doctor, because something is wrong. But for the little day-to-day stuff, they might sneeze. Okay, we all sneeze. Maybe it's viral. Why don't you look into building their immune system? Put them on some pet products for antivirals, or things like that. Use food as medicine, fresh, things, supplements that boost their immune system, keep their microbiome healthy. I think if we can start to think of using food as medicine, you will stay out of the vet's office a lot more. If you feed them a species appropriate diet, you will stay out of the vet's office a whole lot more, because they won't have the GI issues and the vomiting and things like that. that come from eating foods that's inappropriate, and it creates inflammation over long periods of time. I will say it. I am not for vaccinating cats or dogs. If we're going to do it, we have to be smart about it, and we have to do it and know why we're going to do it. And we
Yeah.
have to do it as minimal as possible, because it is known for a fact that vaccines are not safe. And I don't care how many vet techs look at you and say, "Oh, it's fine. It's fine." No, they guarantee you they don't know what's in it. They don't know what's in it.
No, they don't. Yeah.
They don't. And they don't read the labels. They don't look at adverse effects. They just kind of forget that there's even that insert in there. They give vaccines to sick pets, to cats and dogs who should not be vaccinated because they have an underlying health condition. And that's when you get into problems. You know what I'm saying? There is an epidemic in this country of over vaccinating pets, and it
Yeah.
causes chronic issues, chronic health problems. It causes, in some cases, death. Let's not
Yeah.
forget that. And
Yeah.
so if you can get the foundation right with the nutrition, if you can keep their bodies healthy with targeted foods and supplementation for whatever age they're in, for whatever breed they are, because, especially with dogs, there's other considerations.
Mhm.
Um, and then treat them as naturally as possible. You will stay out of the vet's clinic, and you will probably have a much healthier pet long term, because they're not going to be pushing toxic chemical medications for fleas and ticks and heartworms on you. They're not going to be pushing vaccinations every time you go in like they do. They're not going to be pushing prescription diets, which are terrible. The ingredients in those are terrible. So if you can avoid those three big things, my gosh, you've already got a leg up on longevity. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and I was the pet parent who, hello, every time I got the stupid postcard in the mail, I was like, okay, I guess it's time to load everybody back up. And I had like anywhere from 3 to 6 cats, right? So it
Right.
was an ordeal. But guess what I did? I didn't even think. And that's what kills me. It's like, what am I doing? When it finally dawned on me after one of those trips, and we had 4 or 5 cats at the time, and loaded everybody up, brought everybody home, and they were like sick and puny for like 24 to 48 hours and just slept and didn't really want to eat. I remember looking across the room and seeing one of them, and I thought, what the hell am I doing to my cats? And it was about that time I read an article from Dr. Will Falconer at vitalanimal.com. He wrote an article in this for a health newsletter, and he talked about over vaccination and why are we doing this to our pets? And the whole premise that a vaccine can provide immunity for life. Why are we dragging our pets into these offices every year and over, and then seeing problem after problem and not connecting the dots? We're weakening their immune system, which shares the same real estate as the gut and the digestive system. So if we are weakening one, it's going to affect the other. And then we wonder why pets have chronic itching and allergies and digestive issues and skin and all this stuff. And we're like, we're not connecting the dots. Like there's so many factors we do have control over, like food, what we put on our pets, what we put in our pets, the type of even non-toxic anti-parasitics, like non-toxic flea meds and things like that. We don't have to burden their bodies with toxins their whole lives,
Right. Yeah.
and people don't think about that. And in their defense, I didn't either for so many years. I never heard of a cleanse until probably about after my wake up call and learning about, oh my gosh, what else do I need to know about? I've learned about Chinese medicine. What else do I need? And I started diving into cleansing and detoxification of the body and the gut and the colon, and doing, parasite cleanses and heavy metal cleanses and digestive, all these other things. And I'm, wow, I never knew this was a thing. And it was exciting because you feel better, you just have more energy, and it's amazing. We don't even think about doing that for our pets, and they're smaller, and their toxic burden can
It's less.
it becomes overwhelming, right? Because they're just a fraction of our size,
Yeah.
close to the ground, and so they get everything on their paws, and they're constantly licking and ingesting everything. Some go outside, and so they're in contact with glyphosate and pesticides and stuff that's being sprayed, and we don't think about supporting their livers and doing regular detoxification for chemicals, and you know what I'm saying? We just don't think about that. But if we did those things, my gosh, we would just we would help our pets live longer because we're supporting those organs and those pathways that remove all these bad things from their body that don't need to be there. They're just weakening everything, and it degrades over time. Our bodies can only go on so long before they shut down because they just can't. You know what I mean? Pets are the same.
Yeah, you mentioned, I wanted to backtrack real quick because you mentioned something is like, like you said, you get that little card in the mail about vaccines, right? You're like, and you pile up your car with all your cats, like, okay, kids, here we go. Time for the booster.
Yeah.
Woo-hoo. And then all of a sudden, a lot of times pet parents, and it once again, not to their fault, it's like, they just don't know. It's like I've heard so many times where people will rescue a pet, take them to the vet, they get all their shots, they bring them home, they get on that thing. Well, they don't even know how many shots they've already had.
Right. Exactly.
So there's got to be, a pet parent, if you're going to be responsible, it's just kind of like your baby book for your kid. You almost want to have a baby book for your pet so that you can track your vaccinations to make sure they are spaced. If you are going to do vaccinations, they are spaced properly in between. And it's not that, a lot of times that little card that you get in the mail is like, oh, time to make money off of you, and I hate to say that, but it really, it's a business. We have to remember, just like our doctors, it's a business,
It is a business. Yes.
so
yes. I'm glad you said that, because that is a big portion of their annual revenues that they budget on is dedicated to revaccination and flea and tick medications.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
I want to back up for a second, because like when we were talking about, when I said, oh, leftovers and all that, Amanda shared this. She goes, when you say leftovers, we have to be careful not to use seasoned leftovers, right? Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And when I say leftovers, we don't really season our food. We just eat everything as natural as possible. So my mind automatically goes there, but I'm glad you brought this up, Amanda. And, someone else, right after her said, also like garlic and onions are not healthy for pets as well. They're, sometimes really hard on the pet. So I'm glad you brought that up, Amanda. Thank you for bringing that up to our attention. I really appreciate that. And then I just saw another message here. Let's just show this one real quick. I got in an argument with my vet, refused to feed my cat, 14 years old, the cat hydration protein diet. After he drew labs, my cat was healthier than 5-year-olds. He apologized. What's your thought about this kind of practice?
It makes me think that they don't really care about the health and well-being of the cat. They're more interested in selling product.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I have looked at I'll say it, Royal Canin hydrolyzed protein line for cats. I have deep dived on that ingredient list. There is 0 animal protein in it. And that is not species appropriate for any cat. I'm sorry.
Well, I love, I love that we're talking, you brought this up, because it's like, you're so much in line with everything Ryan was saying, it's taught me over the years, is like, I'm just like going, oh my God. It's like, and it just shows you that, we just met this last month, this month.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so for you to be on the same page as Ryan, as as the people that are really like diving into this, it's like, it shows that there's a common thing that pet food is doing out there, that vets are doing out there, the way they make the food. There's just like this common thing that they've been getting away with for so long, you
Yes.
know, and I'm hoping that that's going to change in the future. But it's only going to change because there's people like you out there being able to provide this education to us.
Well, I agree with you, and I think it's up to us as pet parents to educate ourselves. And don't take my word for things. Go do your own research. You
Yeah.
know, don't just don't just listen to someone and say, "Oh, okay, I learned that." Go verify it. Go do some digging. Go read several different articles about that specific topic from different integrative holistic vets, people, leaders in the industry, and compare it to what they're saying, And then what I tell people all the time is trust your heart. What does your intuition say? You can hear all of these grand, opinions and scientific studies and this, that, whatever. But at the end of the day, it comes down to what resonates with you. I don't let myself get influenced by what the latest trend is in the pet space or food or recipe or whatever or anything in life. I tend to sit back and just kind of look at everything. I watch and I'm one of those observers. I'm not a, what do you call, like, first adapters or
Right.
adopt,
Right.
what I'm talking
Personality. Yep.
about. I'm not that. I sit back and I watch and I see, okay, let's just see how this plays out a little bit. And I want to look into it a little bit. I'm not going to just I'm not going to trust it right away because it's there. I want to see how it feels to me. And I think everybody has to learn how to trust their intuition. If something your vet says, like this one person says she got in an argument with her vet, kudos to you for standing up and saying, no,
Yeah.
I'm the pet parent. I make the final decision here, and that doesn't feel right to me, And then I'm sorry they made you do lab work. I just, but it proved your point. My cat's fine. It doesn't need that food. Um, and that's when I tell people if you have that type of situation where you're in a very uncomfortable situation where you feel like you're being bullied somehow, and I've been bullied by a vet. It's not fun. That make that your last visit and go find somebody else. It might take a little while. Do some interviews. Book 20 minutes to go talk to a vet and say, I want to interview you. I'm looking for a new vet for my pets, and these are my hardcore values. Is this going to be a problem? I want to find someone I can partner with that will value my beliefs and respect my decisions and not bully me on the way. Because at the end of the day, I'm the one that has to pay. I'm the
Yep.
one that has to live with my pet. I want to provide them with the longest, healthiest, happiest life I can. And for me, that means staying out of the vet hospital because I haven't found a lot of vets. Thankfully, there are some, but I haven't found a whole lot that are willing to kind of step out of their conventional mindset and the way they were taught in vet school and look at other things and look at other possibilities and just accept that, you know what, you may not know everything. There's a whole nother world of Eastern medicine, for example, of alternative therapies, of new diagnostics coming on the market that give us more information than what you may have heard about. There are better ways to vaccinate if we're going to vaccinate. There's just there needs to be some willingness to compromise and go, okay, I'm not going to be pushing you. I respect your values. I respect your belief system. I just want to get my cat healthy because he's got whatever condition. And then can we go from there? You know what I mean? Instead of just feeling like you're just pushed against a wall and forced to make decisions you just don't feel right with. So learn how to trust what's inside you. It is there for a reason. We have to learn to get back to that and not be influenced by what we're seeing in front of us and what we're hearing.
Well, you what you touched on is like it's really a touch, a point of my frustration sometimes is like, we know that it was Mars that just bought out VCA, and I visit with some of the vets that have worked for VCA and then also transitioned over with the Mars team. And they just said that they came in and they demanded more billing. They demanded, and it's a business. They got into it because it's a business. They didn't get into it for, I mean, this is my personal opinion, but they didn't really get into it for, oh, let's take care of the pets in a holistic or a better way. I mean, how many times our clients gone to the vet and said, oh, I found this company that's holistic, it's all natural, it's Chinese Eastern medicine, and the first thing they say is like, we can't talk about it because we didn't go to school about it. And I get that, I respect that. I do respect even more when they say, but if you know them, talk to them, find out about it, learn about it, but a lot of them say, well, we just can't talk about it. And it's like, sometimes I just feel like they kind of like, they're forcing the hand back to the pet parent and say, no, you need to stay with us and do Western medicine, versus like, look at the alternatives that are really out there that will benefit you and your pet. Because some of these vets that are in these big companies, like, the VCAs that Mars took over and all that, they're bound by their corporation and they can't do much but just what they're dictated to do. So when I tell people to look for a vet these days, I'm like, look, they're starting to pop up all over the place. Look for an independent, holistic pet vet, because they do both. They'll even practice both Western and Eastern medicine, and they'll look at what's right for your pet for that situation, rather than just say, oh, here's a food and it's supposed to be great, so we give it to all our pet parents, you take it too. It may not be right. Like you said, where's the meat protein in that one food? It's not there.
Yep. No, that's a good point. Just remember that any corporation has shareholders, and that's where their allegiance is to first and foremost. It's not to the clients. It's not to the customers. It's to shareholders, because they're there to make a profit. And I do feel like the vets that got into the business did so because they have a love and a passion for helping pets. But then I think that they get sucked in along the way, and then they get kind of probably trapped in a bad system, a lot of times, and it's hard to get out of it because they have vet school bills, and you know what I'm saying? It's just, you just become obligated to your situation, your financial situation, you're running your overhead of your clinic, your hospital, or whatever, and you kind of get stuck in it.
They fall into the machine. Yeah,
you fall into the machine, and it takes a special person to be able to walk away from that and says, no, I want to do something different. I want to go learn about Eastern medicine. I want to go learn chiropractic. I want to go learn herbal medicine. I wanted to go do these alternative therapies that are helping cure these conditions that I'm seeing pets for, because the model I'm in isn't working. But if your cat or dog gets hit by a car and breaks a leg, you want a surgeon. You're going to need that surgeon. Right. That's what they're good at. So we need that for emergency medicine. Absolutely. If your cat has been hiding under the bed and hiding its sickness, because how they are really good at hiding their symptoms. It's a preservation mode, right? Sometimes they can be really sick, and so we don't realize it until it's really bad. You need that emergency clinic. But there is a difference between emergency medicine and just wellness. And that's right. Where, we can empower ourselves as cat parents, dog parents, to learn more about nutrition, to learn more about what we can do to promote longevity through targeted supplementation, lifestyle changes, detoxification on a regular basis, just to help optimize the way their little bodies function and run, so that they can stay healthy longer and they can live longer, enjoy a better life, instead of being in and out of the clinics for chronic issues.
Oh my God, that sounds like me with my doctors. I'm like in and out. I'm like, what am I doing here? I look at my doctors. Why am I here again?
Right.
But no, I get that. Someone wanted to bring this up. Let me see here. Let's see. Oh, I wanted to see what your thought is on this. I believe it's the food that's causing my cats to have thyroid issues at the age of 5. What do you think about that comment?
Thyroid issues have also been tied to over-vaccination. looking at vaccines, so detoxing vaccines. Thyroid issues are also connected a lot of times to um, BPA in cans that are BPA is an endocrine disruptor, and also flame retardant materials in our homes contribute to thyroid disease, hyperthyroidism. We have to look for those endocrine disruptors in our environment, and we have to eliminate those. So that is not a normal thing to have a hyperthyroid issue at age 5. So I would look at trying to figure out if there's anything in your environment that is an endocrine disruptor, BPA, forever chemicals, things like that. If they're on canned food, BPA-free cans. Lessen, like almost zero seafood if you can, because seafood has naturally occurring BPA in it.
Yeah.
So get them on the fresh food. And then thyroid support. There are so many wonderful herbs for thyroid support. I don't know if you have any, Michael, with your products, but sometimes just putting them on a thyroid supplement and doing some clean out, take out the trash a little bit and see if their body will rebalance on its own, because that's not normal for that young.
Yeah, no, I was shocked to see when she mentioned that. What we're talking about here, Katie and I were talking about this exact thing, is like one of the things you do want to do as well is like if you have a cat or a pet or a dog that's having a lot of issues and you can't find the source of it, you might want to start at home. You want to start like, what are the detergents you're using? What do you wash your clothes with?
Yep.
Because it all leaves a residue of chemicals behind. And like you said earlier, cats and dogs are smaller beings and their body takes more, it affects them more than it does us. We may not notice it as much where our cats or dogs will. So it's really, we say start at home, look at your carpets. How old are your carpets? How much dander is coming from your carpet that's underneath the pad that is disintegrated? What's that chemical doing to your cat? Your cat's down on the floor. So there's all these different elements that are inside your house that you have to look at too, but the chemicals that you use to clean your house.
Yep.
Are they, do they linger? Do they wipe away? A lot of them don't wipe away. They sit there.
Yeah.
So, and like you said, like cats and dogs, they walk on the floor all the time. What do? They're licking. So it's not, like when they go outside, like you said, with the chemicals on the grass, they're licking that off. When they're inside the house, they're licking that off. So it's like you have to be really conscious about the whole environment that the cat or dog's in, and really try to detoxify that environment for them as well.
Yes, absolutely. And what's in the air too? Like, are you using fragrances? Are you burning candles that are full of toxic
You've
chemicals?
got the little plugins.
Plugins. Oh my God! We are surrounded by so many chemicals that we become desensitized to it. And when you rid your home of all of that stuff, and then you go into somewhere that has it, it just hits you so hard. It's like there's some places I can't even breathe when I go into certain stores or whatever, because the fragrance is just so strong, and I'm so super sensitive to fragrance and chemicals now that I don't have it around me. I can't tolerate it. It's crazy. It's crazy.
It really, because we're close to the fires here, and so we got an air purifier for our place just to have one. And we've never had one before. And so we put it in we put it in the living room, and all of a sudden we saw the number. We're like, oh my God, our air's really dirty. We put it in our bedroom. The air is really dirty. And then it was interesting to see that once we got the air kind of cleaned in our house, the simplest little things that triggered that, that number to go up to, like, unhealthy breathing. It's like, if you're cleaning the house, all of a sudden that number climbs up. If you're cooking, there's all these different things that attribute to the bad air quality in our own home. So it's like, even like now I'm like, how we are once we get on something, we're like, oh, you need to get an air purifier. Everybody needs to get an air purifier,
Yep. It's like when you remodel your kitchen and it looks beautiful, the rest of your home is just kind of like, ugh, you're like, oh, now I got to remodel that room and I've got to remodel that room and I've got to do that bathroom. It's like you open this can of worms, you know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I got to do air. Now I'm going to do all, take out all the toxic chemicals from our cleaning products and our laundry. And then I'm going to do the water. And then I'm going to do all the food and start reading all the labels and throw out all this stuff that has all this, these preservatives and these toxic stuff and food dyes in it. It is an overhaul. So don't let yourself get overwhelmed because it's easy to feel that way. Just take it one step at a time.
Yeah, just baby steps. We always say
Yeah.
baby steps, just take it one little step at a time because, but what's great is like, if you're taking those baby steps, something encourage you to do that. So you're on the right path.
Yeah.
You don't have to make it a hurdle in 2 days or 3 days. Just continue those baby steps. And before you know it, you'll be in a better space for you and your pets.
Yeah. Can I address a question over here from Amanda?
Yeah.
She says, don't want to go on a tangent, but when we talk holistic, are there solutions for mental health
Oh,
too?
yeah.
We lost my Toby last year, but his surviving big brother is a different cat, totally needed. Absolutely. I do a lot of work in emotional healing and holistic health, in energy work, energy healing stuff. There's always an emotional component to an illness and health issues. Your cat is probably suffering from grief, and energy healing work can clear that out. But there's also wonderful things like flower essences. Star of Bethlehem comes to mind. And then the homeopathic remedy Ignatia is wonderful for grief as well. So those kinds of things. And then color. I don't think people really understand how powerful color can be as a therapy. So colors like yellow for depression, for pets who are super sad, who are just, grumpy and irritated, yellow and orange. I mean, think about those colors. They're bright, they're cheerful. It's the energetic frequencies that they give off. It's not that the pets have to see the color, it's the frequency behind it.
Yeah.
So try those things, and see how he does. And then if you need to do a little deeper work, energy healing work is always a great option. And cats respond so well to energy work.
Yeah, well, they're the ball of energy themselves. That's what's so beautiful about
They're
cats.
little energy sponges for sure.
Definitely. So yeah, and we see that. I had on Clubhouse, we had a room called Grief is Love, and I bring in a grief counselor for the pets, and she talked about energy all the time and just the power of bringing in the positive energy into their life and all that. Because just like us, when we lose somebody, it's a loss. We have to grieve it, and they have to grieve it too. And if they don't have the tools to grieve it, they're running around going,
They're stuck.
They're stuck. Yeah, exactly.
Just like we get stuck,
Yeah.
We get stuck.
Yeah.
They're
Exactly.
sentient beings. They're just in fur.
They're just in fur. They're just, just little fur balls. I love them. What do you think about this one here? My mom used to mention that cat food was made from discarded meats. We talked about that from human production because she was so impressed by the resourcefulness. Oh, that is such, what do you think about that?
Well, that's how the whole pet food industry came to be. They wanted to know, what are we going to do with all this the waste from the human industry, the human food industry. And so, somebody had this brilliant idea that they could make money if they could get all this discarded stuff and go put it through a rendering facility and make it into pet food and let me clarify, pet feed. And they would feed it to livestock and to cows and pigs and chickens, and then it went to dogs and cats, So
And it introduced itself to our domestic pets.
Yeah, exactly.
And Brian kind of walked me through that whole process, and to hear that process just shook my world, because it was and I'll share this, because it's like, unless we hear it, we don't know it. What he said is, what they do is they go out to these different farms and they buy up the animals that the human consumption they don't take. So they buy up the leftover animals, they bring them in, they drop them into one of those big containers that you see, the shipping containers. They leave them in there for many days as they fill up that container. And then when they get ready to use those animals, they actually take them out. And a lot of them now have bacteria, disease.
They're just
decaying. It's disgusting. And what he says they do is they take the animal carcass, they dip it in a chemical, and then they strip out all the disease and all the decay and all the bacteria that's been growing on it, and then process that food. But what happens is that chemical is carcinogenic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that gets brought along into the food chain, into the feed that then becomes our food for our domestic pets.
Yep. It's gross.
Yeah. And when you visualize that, it's just like, it's such a horrific visual. I was just like, Ryan, he's like, it's true, Michael. Yeah. You mute. There you go.
This has been so much fun. I hate to cut it short, but I have another recording in like 3 minutes.
Well, go, Pam. Thank you so much, everybody. Her information is down below. If you have any questions, reach out. We're always here. We're, we love our pets. We love your pets, and we just want the best for everyone. So with that, Pamela, thank you so much for being here today. It's been such a pleasure.
You're so welcome.
And we'll circle back. We'll do this again, and we'll bring more lively information to our pet parents.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. It was so nice to have you all watching. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Pam. Have a nice day.
Okay. Y'all too.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.